You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou and we have finally reached the day as today the 2023 season of the NFL officially kicks off as the Detroit Lions head on into Arrowhead Stadium to take on the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in what is sure to be an exciting game of fireworks and high-powered offense. Everyone's expecting a very high-scoring affair. I'll be the first to admit I am as well. But before we dive in, I want to invite you all to make sure you share your picks down below in that comment section. Give me your thoughts and opinions on my picks. And as a reminder, I am no betting expert by any means. I'm just sharing my picks, who I think is going to win, and I'll give you guys a score prediction. My record for last season in 2022 was 171, 98, and 2. That odd number obviously being because the Bills and Bengals game during the regular season did not finish, but I do believe I would have been a 172 had that game finished off. But yes, less than 100 incorrect predictions last season. My goal for this year is to just try to get the number lower than that. But if we could push closer to 200 right, that would be pretty cool. But diving in with the very first game, I'm going to go in chronological order. We will start with the Thursday night football game between the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs, a game that features two really high-powered offenses. A lot of people looking to see if the Lions can match the Chiefs, the NFL, even buying into the hype around these Lions, giving them the opening game against the defending Super Bowl champions. With Chris Jones being out of this game, I really do think that this game has a really good opportunity of being a very high-scoring affair. I don't necessarily know if the Lions offense is going to be able to match their output from last year. There's not really any reason to assume that they can't, but for me personally, and I talked about this in my power rankings yesterday, I just don't know if we could really count on Jared Goff to have that same exact season again. Now, it could be that the offense and the scheme that they have over there fits his tool set really well, and he's going to continue to progress. Definitely possible, but I don't necessarily know. However, I do think that this Lions team does put up a really good fight against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think if the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes under center, this team is in it to win it in basically every single game they have. But as for who I think comes out victorious in this matchup here, I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair with the Chiefs coming out on top, starting off the season 1-0, but not by any dominant means. No, I'm looking at the Chiefs winning this one 32-27. I think it's going to be a hotly contested game where you're looking at Kansas City maybe scoring a go-ahead touchdown late, or maybe they just get a little bit too far ahead for the Detroit Lions to keep pace with, but ultimately Chiefs get that W again, 32-27. I think it's going to be a really fun, exciting contest to kick off the 2023 NFL season. Looking on to Sunday, though, we'll start with the 1 o'clock games and then work our way through here. First game we're looking at is going to be the Carolina Panthers heading into Atlanta to take on their division rival Falcons in a matchup that has been very competitive, I would say, the last few years here. Even the games last year decided by very close margins, and I don't really expect things to be any different between these two teams here. You have a rookie quarterback in Bryce Young coming in now with a new head coach in Frank Reich over there in Carolina, a defense that has been really good the last couple of years, and I don't really expect to have any sort of fall off from last year. It's just a matter of can they match how competitive they have been the last few years. But overall, Carolina, very rounded out team. I'm very curious to see how their skill positions handle things now under Frank Reich and his offense there. And then when I look at Atlanta, you have a team that has Desmond Ridder coming in as QB1 this time around, as opposed to kind of working his way in during the season with Taylor Heineke waiting in the wings as his backup quarterback. But you have a very good offensive line, a team that has a lot of talent when it comes to running the football. You have, of course, Cordell Patterson, Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson being the big draft pick that everyone seems to be excited about, watching them hopefully carry their fantasy team to a championship victory. Of course, you have Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts. There's a lot to be excited about with the offense. For me, it's more so like, what can this defense do to help match what the potential upside seems to be for the Atlanta Falcons? I don't necessarily know what they're going to be come season end, but I do think that the Falcons might be a little bit more competitive than some people expect, and I am expecting a little bit of growing pains from Carolina offensively. But overall, I think this is a very evenly matched game where you give like advantage defense to Carolina, advantage offense to the Falcons, and it's a matter of the other side, who comes up short. Ultimately, I do think I'm going to go with the Falcons winning this game here, though. I give them just a slight edge offensively, and while there's a lot of expectation coming in for Bryce Young, I think rookie growing pains are real. Desmond Ridder himself experienced them last year, and while there's, of course, a possibility that Bryce Young just comes out and completely lights it up, Alabama quarterbacks just, up until this point have not really proven to be that I don't want to say, and I don't want to compare Bryce Young to every single past Alabama quarterback, but the track record is what it is. They just haven't necessarily come out lighting the world on fire right away. So maybe it takes a little bit for Bryce Young to catch on, obviously dealing with, in terms of like going from a overly dominant Alabama offense to now you're in the NFL where everyone's great, including the defenses you're facing. Maybe that skill jump takes him a little bit of time to get comfortable. I do like the Falcons. I'll take them 24-23. Tight contest here. This is one that I kind of think is a coin flip because I could very well see that the Panthers defense winds up being too much, gives Falcons problems, and maybe the Panthers come away with a win, but I do like the Falcons in a tight one. Next game we're looking at here, we have another division rival matchup, and we are looking at the Cincinnati Bengals heading into Cleveland to take on the Browns, who honestly give Joe Burrow and the Bengals a really tough time here. The Browns have an excellent track record against Cincinnati since Joe Burrow has come in, but I will say this, while the defense looks exciting in Cleveland, I don't quite know if this offense is going to be up to the task because of my reservations regarding Deshaun Watson. I know a lot of people are expecting him to maybe look better coming into this season because he had to miss 11 games last year and it was a little bit of a slow start for him, but when you just look at and this is, all feelings of legal issues aside, when you just look at Deshaun Watson, the football player, and the situation that he was in, missing over 700 days of football action in the NFL, that is a lot to overcome in what is a highly competitive league where you need to be there day in and day out, and to have missed so much time, whether he's been keeping himself in football shape or not, in practicing on his own, with all that time missed, I'm a little bit concerned that we don't quite get the Deshaun Watson of old back at all, if ever. So that's kind of where I stand right now. I do think that this defense, though, matches up really, really well against the Bengals, so I will give them that. I think they have a really strong secondary, an excellent defensive front. Linebacking core is going to look really good with guys being healthier this year. You guys missed out on Anthony Walker all last season, so I'm sure the Browns will be excited to see how he pans out. But the Cincinnati Bengals are loaded on offense. They have a pretty good defense as well with a great defensive coordinator. This is another one that I think is going to be tight, but I am leaning towards the Cincinnati Bengals taking the victory here, so I am going to go with them in a tighter contest. This is one that I feel like defenses might shine a little bit more. I have the Bengals winning 21-17, so not an overly high scoring affair by any means. I do think defenses might win out a little bit, especially when you consider that Joe Burrow was pretty much sidelined with a calf thing for the entirety of the preseason. He didn't get really any opportunity to play and ramp up and get ready with his fellow offensive players. Whether he needs that or not, is really up to you. I know he hasn't really played in the preseason at all, but it is, something that helps you get a little sharp and a little bit more ready when you get some opportunity to take those snaps. Could be overblowing it, I don't know, but I do like the Bengals in a tighter contest. 21-17, defenses shine a little bit more than maybe the offenses would be expected to. Next game we're looking at, though, we now have the Jacksonville Jaguars heading into Indianapolis to take on the Colts, and I'm going to be honest with all you Colts fans out there, because I am a Colts fan myself. I don't really have a ton of high expectations for Indy, at least this season. I think there is going to be some growing pains, and I won't be too surprised if the first few weeks of the season are a tough pill to swallow, and that's kind of the way I'm leaning with this game right now, because the Jacksonville Jaguars, coming off of a very strong run last year, going into year 2 with Doug Peterson as their head coach, I just have a really hard time believing that there's any shot they take a step back, and I am expecting, honestly, a pretty significant step forward. The offense is littered with talent over there in Jacksonville. The defense is no slouch by any means as well, whereas with Indianapolis, we have a lot to kind of, who is going to be the star on offense. Now that Jonathan Taylor is out for at least 4 weeks, and for the foreseeable future, his relationship with the team is kind of up in the air at this point. I have a lot of questions regarding them offensively. If the offensive line can even get back to the badass group they were just a few years ago, and even on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, you lose a guy like Bobby Okereke in the offseason. You lost yourself a near 10-sack rusher as well with Yannick Ngakoue leaving. So there is a lot to just kind of look at and not be super positive about. I don't think they're just going to get completely dogged walk all season. I think there's a lot of potential upside, but until they get to that upside, things are going to be ugly. And I'm going to be taking the Jaguars in this game here, if you couldn't really already tell. I have the Jaguars winning 28-17. I think we see a little bit of some offense here or there, maybe a spark or two from the Colts, but something tells me the Jaguars might be cruising to a comfortable victory here in week number 1. As a Colts fan, I hope I eat my words, but I'm not really expecting that. Next game we look at, we have ourselves the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading into Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Now, when you look at Tampa Bay, a lot of people are writing them off right now simply because it's post-Tom Brady era. You bring in Baker Mayfield, who has had a bit of a troubling career the last couple of years and moving around. And, you know, it's funny because at one point Baker Mayfield brought the Cleveland Browns to their first playoff berth. And I don't even know how long, to be honest with you, because I have not really seen the Browns ever play in the playoffs in my life personally, besides just a couple of years ago when they were playing the Chiefs. And I mean, the hype around him was real. Things kind of fell apart. They obviously go and trade for Deshaun Watson. He moves on. And, you know, since then, he's just kind of bouncing around. He stopped in Carolina, and then he had his little stint with the Rams as well. I don't necessarily know what Tampa Bay's offense is going to look like, but I will say this. Offensive line is decent enough with some of the skill talent you have there when you look at guys like Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, of course, two very talented wide receivers. If Baker Mayfield can get comfortable in this system here as quarterback one and find even just a solid rapport with either of those two receivers, this is an offense that could compete. And as for the defensive side, while they have been losing pieces, it feels like each and every year since that big Super Bowl run they had a few years back with Tom Brady, there's still a solid group together there. And I mean, you're looking at a potential of maybe Devin White moving on, depending on how things shake out with his contract situation. But overall, it's a solid group to say the least. I don't know, though, if they're going to be able to hang with what I think the Minnesota Vikings offense is going to be able to do. I think that the offense is going to be very pass-heavy, very exciting to watch. I'm a very big fan of Jordan Addison coming in and pairing alongside Justin Jefferson for Minnesota. I know there's concerns about what the running game is going to look like there, but with what you have as far as receiving threats go in Minnesota, not too concerned there. I am interested in seeing how the Minnesota Vikings defense looks this year with Brian Flores. That is definitely a big question mark for me, but I do think with just high power this Minnesota offense showed it can be last year, with another year in this system here, I think it's only going to progress further. Justin Jefferson continuing to make his case as the best wide receiver in the NFL. I like the Minnesota Vikings winning this game here somewhat comfortably, 31-20. I do think the Tampa Bay is going to be able to move against this defense because, again, with losses and just a change in defensive system, I think there's going to be some growing pains there. I do think that Tampa Bay might compete a little bit, but I think Minnesota could somewhat run away with this game with how high-powered their offense is expected to be this year. Now we're looking at Tennessee heading into New Orleans to take on the Saints. And this is an interesting one here because I saw that the Saints are big favorites in this game. Now, if you are a Tennessee Titans fan, I'm sure you have been pounding the table since last year about all the injuries that this team has dealt with. And I myself personally, and again, Colts fan here saying this, very much respect what Mike Vrabel has done in Tennessee since he's taken the reins over there. And I personally think he is a top 5 coach in the NFL. And that's not really up for debate. As for New Orleans, you have Dennis Allen leading his team with a new quarterback in Derek Carr, a defense that has been really strong over the years. Dennis Allen was their D coordinator before moving into that head coaching spot once Sean Payton elected to retire a few years ago before coming back and taking over for Denver. But this is a very tight matchup here, one that I don't really think is a clear winner, but they have New Orleans favored, obviously being in New Orleans. However, I'm going to go here and say that I think I like the Tennessee Titans in this matchup. With the amount of injuries that they dealt with, especially on defense last year, this Tennessee Titans team was still competitive all the way to the very end. Obviously, things didn't shake out the way they wanted to, but with a much healthier roster, getting guys back like Harold Landry III, I think that we are going to see a very different Tennessee Titans team, one that is rejuvenated, one that is healthy. They still have Derrick Henry. They have some talent at wide receiver now with DeAndre Hopkins coming in to help show Treylon Burks how to be a big, ballpoint catching wide receiver. I'm excited to see how this Titans team looks this year because I think that they're going to shock some people. Some people seem to have forgotten just how good the Titans can be if their roster was just healthy. So with a healthy roster, I think they're going to be a lot more competitive. I think they go in New Orleans, tight contest here. I think we're going to see some heavy defensive play, but ultimately the Titans squeaking out a victory 23-20, give them the W over the Saints. I'm very excited to give this game a watch. And next, the one that I think is probably going to be potentially the lowest scoring game of this week. The reason I say that is because you have a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that was dominant last year, paired with now an offense that appears to be progressing even further along than they did towards the end of last season, going up against a San Francisco 49ers team that now seems like they're going to have Nick Bosa come Sunday because he signed his contract extension yesterday. This one is going to be a defensive slugfest. I don't anticipate a ton of points. I know that there's a lot of talent on San Francisco, and I know a lot of people are really high on Pittsburgh based off what we've seen from them so far this preseason, but I really think that this one is going to be defenses winning out, and it's going to come down to maybe like a field goal or so and maybe a couple of touchdowns by the winning team. I do not expect a high-scoring affair at all. And to be fair, I really think that with as good as Pittsburgh has looked this preseason and how excited I am to see how this offense looks in year 2 with Kenny Pickett under center, and of course, George Pickens as well, I have a feeling the 49ers front is going to give that somewhat improved offensive line a fit. I think that the Steelers defensive front can also give the offensive line of the San Francisco 49ers a fit and maybe give Brock Purdy a little bit of a tough time. So I'm going with a low scoring affair, but I am taking San Francisco 17-14. This one is going to really be a battle of two premier defensive fronts. I would argue that we're looking at 2 of the top 5 teams in the NFL when it comes to rushing the quarterback, stuffing the run, and doing everything you need to do up front to win in the trenches here. So this is going to be a very, very defensive heavy game. I'm excited to watch. I love watching good defenses go at it like this. So I think we're going to see a couple of offenses put into a headlock for about 60 minutes on both sides of the ball. Now we are looking at, and I don't really know how many people are very excited in Arizona for this game here, as a lot of people don't seem to be very high on Arizona this season, and I will say that I am one of those people. But we have Washington taking on Arizona, this one in Washington under new ownership. The game is sold out. I can't even tell you the last time something like that happened in Washington. So hats off to the Commanders. You got yourself a sold out crowd anticipating a new era with a new owner. Sam Howell is going to be leading the way. You have yourself a defense with a very strong defensive front that with Chase Young should hopefully get back to being a more impressive unit, one that nearly knocked out the Buccaneers a few years ago when they were en route to their Super Bowl run here, going up against the Cardinals team that a lot of people seem to think is tanking. With the way they're trading players away and just the whole mystery surrounding who is going to be quarterback, and it looks like it's going to be Josh Dobbs now, I don't really know if I could go with the Cardinals. There's not really a way that I could spin this other than they're just going to completely shock the world and Josh Dobbs is going to surprise everybody. That would be the only scenario, and I don't really know what the probability of that is, but I really think this one's going to be, it's going to be a tough season for Arizona if I'm being completely upfront about it. There's going to be a lot of weeks where I think I'm going to be picking against Arizona. This one being one of those weeks. I have the Commanders winning 26-13. I don't expect a ton on offense. I don't expect a ton on defense. Just the amount of losses this offseason that Arizona has taken in terms of talent and personnel, whether it's via trade, via retirement, whatever it may be, not looking good for Arizona. I'm sorry, Cardinals fans. Washington, it's a new era for you guys. I hope that you can kick off the season with a big victory. I'm rooting for you. Again, 26-13. Give me the Commanders. I think Sam Howell might impress some people with his play against Arizona and a defense that is very questionable right now. On top of that, you have some exciting receivers, Jahan Dotson. You also got Terry McLaurin, of course, who signed his big contract. I mean, this is an exciting young group. It's just a matter of can they put it together and put some numbers on the boards. And now we turn our attention to another interesting matchup here. We have the Houston Texans taking on the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm going to say this before we dive in. Before you immediately go, okay, Ravens victory, let's move along. As a Colts fan, I have always looked at the Houston Texans, no matter how good or bad they were doing that season, as a team that will not die and will not go down without a fight. This is a team that is a thorn in the side of everyone they play. They are competitive with teams they have no business being competitive against, and I would not be too surprised to see them do something like that against the Baltimore Ravens. However, I am with the side of people that are rooting with the Ravens here. I think with a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback, a lot of really young players in Houston, this is a tough one to pick against Baltimore, who's getting Lamar Jackson, a very motivated now Lamar Jackson, who's got his money and he's ready to go out and play like an MVP. He's got himself Odell Beckham. You have Rashad Bateman. You have Zay Flowers. You have a running back group that is J.K. Dobbins. I mean, offensive line is as good as they come. Defensively, there will be some things to watch with a lot of turnover as far as starters go on the defensive front, but altogether, there is a really good defense there, and if there's one team that I can count on to field a strong defense every single year, it is the Baltimore Ravens. I like the Ravens winning. I think the Texans are a bit of a thorn on their side. It winds up being 31-21. Not a tight affair. I think that it's going to be a cruise to victory type thing where maybe the Texans get some garbage time points, but I don't think that the Houston Texans just roll over and die. Moving into the 4:25 games now, those mid-afternoon games. First game we're looking at, we have the Las Vegas Raiders heading into Denver to take on the Broncos. Josh McDaniels playing one of his former teams in a team that he formerly head coached. I've got to say this. This was probably one of the more difficult games to pick and one that I'm probably least confident about. There's one other game we'll get to that I'm a little less confident about because I'm not really sure who to go with in that one. But I will say this. You have the Raiders who need to win now. You go and invest in getting Devontae Adams. You go and now grab Jimmy Garoppolo, who's supposed to be Josh McDaniels' quarterback. Josh McDaniels obviously not having a good first season, and I myself am somebody who does not think Josh McDaniels is the right guy for this job. But if he wants to keep his job, this game must be a victory. Then you look at Denver, who had Super Bowl aspirations last year, ultimately fell flat on their face. Russell Wilson was the butt end of all these Russell Wilson can't cook jokes, and now we're sitting here wondering if Sean Payton can fix Denver. They do have a really good defense with a lot of talent, so there is that to look forward to seeing, but can this offense be fixed is the real question. They lost Tim Patrick again this year, and I don't really know what's going to happen with him, but you do still have guys like Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, and offensive line is one of those things that I will be watching this season as well for Denver because I don't necessarily know if I'm sold on what they're doing over there. But this really is just, it's the Sean Payton show in a way because it's really the Sean Payton's offense help fix Russell Wilson, help fix Jerry Jeudy. It's really coming down. I feel like it's all on Sean Payton's shoulders right now. So with that being said, I don't know if they come out of the gate swinging. I know they're in Denver, so I believe they are favored if I'm remembering correctly. But I do think with a little bit more continuity and Josh McDaniels having his guys supposedly, the Raiders win an uglier contest, 20-16. I think we're going to see a handful of field goals from Denver here. Not a ton of scoring as far as touchdowns go. I think this one will be not the most entertaining of affairs. That's just my opinion based off how I look at the matchup here. But Raiders 20-16 in a uglier offensive contest, I would say. Now we turn our focus to the Philadelphia Eagles heading into New England to take on the New England Patriots in what is a homecoming game for Tom Brady. He is going to be honored during pregame and at halftime, but the focus here is on the offense of the Patriots. With a new offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien, can Bill O'Brien take this team from a playoff pretender to a playoff contender with a defense that was really good last year and I honestly think ends up being even better this season with some of the additions they made? They went and got themselves a cornerback one in the draft with Christian Gonzalez, but you're going up against an Eagles team that is fresh off of a sour Super Bowl loss taste in their mouth, and I'm a little bit concerned for New England. But I will say this. My personal opinions, I think the offense in New England gets a little bit better. I don't think they're going to have Juju Smith-Schuster this week, which is kind of awful, but overall, we've been seeing some very fun stuff from some young wide receivers in New England. I think Bill O'Brien can put together a competent enough offense that this team is more competitive on that side of the ball. Not concerned about the defense. Philadelphia, though, offensively, they could wind up running away with this game if the Patriots can't at least keep the ball away from them for some period of time. I think their key to success in possibly winning this game is to try to control the football as much as possible. And it seems like that's going to be kind of the route that New England's going, at least out of the gate this season. But I do still like the Philadelphia Eagles winning this game. I think going into New England, hostile territory as far as New England fans go, and with the whole Tom Brady appreciation night kind of being a thing as well, I think New England might have a little more juice in the tank, a little bit more competitive in a game that they would normally maybe be less competitive in, but I'm going to take the Eagles still. I have them winning 24-20, and I will say that there is a good possibility that the Eagles 24 number that I have pinned here is not high enough, and this number should probably be a little bit higher, but I'm counting on a Bill Belichick-led defense that should be better than last year to maybe hold them down just a little bit. Next, we flip over to the West Coast, and we're looking at two AFC teams, the Miami Dolphins and the LA Chargers. This is one that I honestly think could be a full-blown offensive affair because right now, I'm not necessarily sure what we're going to get out of the Los Angeles Chargers defense, and Miami as well. Not 100% sure we're going to get out of theirs, but one thing I do know, when Tua Tagovailoa was healthy, this Miami Dolphins offense could move with the best of them with the wide receiver talent that they have over there, and even the running back room was really effective as well. And then you look at the Chargers, they have about as stacked of a wide receiver room as you could possibly have in the NFL at this point. I would put them up with just about anybody else in the league. And on top of that, you have yourself Justin Herbert, who could throw the football 7 miles down the road if he really needed to. I think this is going to be a high-scoring shootout. I think it comes down to whoever has the ball last. And in my case here, I do think I give the slight edge to the LA Chargers. I'm going to give them the win 38-34. This is, in my opinion, the highest scoring affair of the weekend. I think we're going to see a lot of points. It's going to be very exciting to watch, but I like the Chargers, especially since they're at home. Dolphins traveling. I think that's what kind of gives you the slight edge over to LA. Next, we are looking at the Rams taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Divisional matchup here where you have a Rams team coming in that will not have Cooper Kupp. Kind of concerning there, and I think that ultimately helps you kind of find your way to who ends up being victorious in this game here. But with no Cooper Kupp and a very young core of players on both the offense and defense, but a ton of young players on defense as well, rookies especially, that are going to be getting some playtime here in LA, I really don't think that they have too much of a shot against the Seahawks, and I really hate to just kind of come right out and drive into that, but with how good Seattle looked last year, the talent that they added this offseason, and just how deep the defense actually is over there in Seattle, which wasn't really their strong suit for the entirety of the year, I think with more experience, that group is going to get even better this season. So while the talk of the town was the Seahawks offense last year, and there are a lot of really exciting options to look at in Seattle, of course, Jackson Smith-Njigba joins the fold. You, of course, have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, who does not seem to age, and, of course, a resurging Geno Smith, apparently, who came out of nowhere last season and surprised everyone. Seattle has a real good shot to run away with this game. I have them winning 33-20, more so just because I think that the injuries that the Rams are dealing with right now, and on top of that, defense being so young, I think Seattle's offense can take advantage, and I hate to kind of write off the Rams, man, but losing Cooper Kupp early on just does not help their chances in this game. And then the final afternoon game before we start jumping into Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football, I'm looking at the Chicago Bears taking on the Green Bay Packers. This one's in Chicago. Is it time for the Bears to finally shed the little brother kind of mantra, or not mantra, I guess is the word, but the little brother aura that they've been kind of wearing in Chicago against Green Bay through the entirety of the Aaron Rodgers era and the Brett Favre era, I guess you could say as well, minus like a little tiny stretch where the Bears had a really good few seasons. I think the time is now. I really do. While I am excited to see what the Green Bay Packers can do with Jordan Love under center, and I think he's looked a lot better in the preseason action that we've seen so far compared to what he's looked at in the brief stints we've seen in the previous couple of years from him, I do think I'm erring on the side of Chicago here. The defense last year was awful to watch for Chicago, but the offense was exciting. It was just a matter of, can we get the offensive line a little bit better, and can we get some skill talent around Justin Fields so he doesn't have to run for 1,000 yards? I think they did just that. They went and added a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball, and the only real negative that you could take from that is just with all the new talent, and I believe we're looking at like 6 new starters on defense for the Bears this year. Can all of those guys mesh with what they've already been doing in Chicago, and how quickly does it take them to do so? That could hold them back, but I personally believe that with all the talent that they added on the defensive side of the ball, it has to be a better defense than what they fielded last year. And if you get a better defense with an offense that looks really exciting on paper right now, I do want to give a slight edge to Chicago in this game, and I'm going to give them the victory 21-20. I think the Green Bay Packers defense is going to give them some fits. I think the Packers defense is probably the best in the division right now for the NFC North, but offensively, there's a lot of youth, a lot of really young first and second year guys that you're going to be relying on in Green Bay. And I expect to see some mistakes and that lead to some issues here or there that prevent them from reaching their fullest potential, at least right away. Next up, we move into Sunday Night Football, first game of the year, and we're looking at the Dallas Cowboys taking on the New York Giants. This one's at MetLife Stadium, and I am very excited to see how this one goes down because a lot of us are wondering, were the Giants the one-hit wonder of last season? Are they going to be able to repeat and do what they did last year and progress even further? Has Daniel Jones finally arrived under the tutelage of Brian Daboll? Whereas you have the Dallas Cowboys, I would argue one of the more talented rosters in the NFL. They are stacked from top to bottom on both offense and defense now. Tony Pollard is now your lead back. You went and got Brandon Cooks to add to your wide receiver room as well. There is a lot to be excited about with this game. These teams play each other very tough when they're more evenly matched, and I'm expecting this game to be a tighter contest. And I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys taking a victory here, 25-24. I think it's something along the lines of you see a 2-point conversion from maybe the Cowboys to steal the lead or something like that late in the game. This is going to be a tight affair. I think that they're a little bit closer match than you would expect being division rivals, but I do give the edge to the Dallas Cowboys. I like their defense more. They, of course, have Micah Parsons, who was an absolute game wrecker on his own, so I'm going to give a slight advantage there just because I'm not like, and this isn't me doubting the Giants, I just don't know if I'm all the way there to buy in. They were a very big surprise last year, and I loved watching them do what they did last year, and it's great they have Saquon Barkley locked up now, but I don't know about that wide receiver room just yet, and the secondary is something I'll also be keeping an eye on closely, but overall, I think it's a tight game. You could give this to either one, but I'm going to give it to the Dallas Cowboys. Again, 25-24. And then our final matchup of the week, we look at Monday Night Football as the Buffalo Bills travel to MetLife themselves and take on the New York Jets in a game that will see the regular season debut of Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform, sporting that number 8 in what is a very exciting matchup. The Jets finally have an elite quarterback for the first time since Joe Namath, which was well before I was born, going up against a Buffalo Bills team that has kind of run the AFC East since Tom Brady left a few years ago. With all that in mind, I think when you look at these two teams, they both match up very well. However, the Bills not having Von Miller is a key thing that I'm looking at in this game. If he was playing in this game and he was ready to go, I think that would help maybe tip the scales in more towards the Bills' favor because he is a finisher and he is a game wrecker. However, not having him and seeing some of the turnover issues that Josh Allen dealt with last year, I am slightly concerned going up against the Jets defense that has the possibility of being, again, a top 5 unit, maybe even top 3. Maybe top 5 isn't high enough with just how good they looked last year. Now that they have an offense that should be able to back them up, something tells me the Bills are in for a little bit of a surprise, and I'm actually going to go with the Jets winning this game here, 29-23. I know that the Bills are heavily favored by a lot of people, but I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get this offense right with his offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett. You say what you want about his head coaching ability. He won 2 MVPs with Nathaniel Hackett as his OC over there, so we'll keep that in mind and not worry about what Hackett did as a head coach in Denver. I really think that with the way this offense could potentially look, with how talented some of these guys are, you think of Dalvin Cook being brought in, Breece Hall still coming back from that injury. He has no pressure now to come back and play early, which is great for him. There's a lot to be excited about in New York, and I'm trying not to buy in too much, but I do think the Jets get the victory in this one here, 29-23. But those are my picks for week 1 of the NFL. Again, let me know your picks in the comment section down below. Am I getting picks right? Am I getting picks wrong? Let me hear it all. Would love to discuss with you all. But that is it for me. I appreciate it if you made it to the end of the video. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.